Elizabeth's phone rang, and there was silence. She could hear Anne's cold breath on the other side. "I will not accept the duty," her daughter had said. After 25 years of royal service, her hardest working child was rebelling. "You are my daughter," Elizabeth said with a trembling voice. "And all my life I only gave you duty," Anne replied painfully. "You were never a mother. You were only a queen." These words had shattered Elizabeth. Anne was right. Her daughter had become her most loyal servant, but had never been her beloved child. And now that Cold War was a lifelong emotional battle between two strong women. When Anne was born in 1950, Elizabeth was still a young queen. The responsibilities of the crown were so heavy that she didn't have the luxury of enjoying being a new mother. Queen first, mother second, she would constantly think. Duty is more important than everything. Anne grew up with nannies because Elizabeth's visits were rare and brief. During moments squeezed between official programs, she would come and say, "Hello, Anne. How are you today? Are you well?" Then leave and return to her duties. As Anne grew up, she began to notice this distance. While other children played with their mothers, she spent time with nannies. When she asked, "Why doesn't my mother play with me?" her nanny would say, "She's very busy, sweetheart. She has important work. She loves you but can't show it." But Anne never believed this explanation. When she was 5, she experienced great disappointment. Elizabeth had a birthday party. Anne had dressed in a beautiful dress. "I'll dance with my mother," she had thought. But Elizabeth didn't have time. She was talking with guests. She had official duties. Anne stood alone in the corner. "My mother forgot me," she cried. That day, Anne understood that she wasn't her mother's priority. Royal duties were more important than everything. During school years, the situation got even worse. Elizabeth's schedule intensified. There was almost no opportunity to spend time with Anne. Even weekends had official events. "How's school going, Anne?" Elizabeth would ask hurriedly. "Good," Anne would say briefly. There was no time for more conversation. Elizabeth would rush to the next duty. When Anne's loneliness began to consume her, she developed a different strategy. "If I can't get my mother's attention," she thought, "I'll find other ways." She focused on excelling in sports, horseback riding, tennis, swimming. She tried to be the best in every field because maybe then Elizabeth would notice. Indeed, Elizabeth did notice. She would tell Philip, "Anne is very successful. She's doing well in everything. This is a good thing." But she wasn't establishing emotional closeness. She was only evaluating performance. When Anne realized this, she became even more upset. "My mother is only interested in my achievements," she thought, "not interested in me as a person." The teenage years were more difficult. Anne began to rebel. She opposed rules. She violated protocol. When Elizabeth heard these things, she would get angry. "Anne is behaving irresponsibly," she would say. "This doesn't befit the royal family." "Discipline is needed." She would call Anne and scold her. "Your behavior is unacceptable," she would say. "You are a princess. You must act accordingly." Anne would respond, "I didn't choose to be a princess. You imposed this life on me. You never asked what I wanted." Elizabeth would get angry at these words. "This is a luxurious life," she would say. "You should be grateful." Instead of complaining, Anne's eyes would fill. "Luxurious but loveless," she would say. "I have everything material. But I don't have a mother." These words would hurt Elizabeth, but she wouldn't admit it. "Being emotional doesn't make one a queen," she would say. One must be strong. You be strong too, Anne. In her 20s, Anne had serious conflict over marriage. When her relationship with Mark Phillips began, Elizabeth didn't approve. He's not a suitable husband, she would say. He doesn't have royal blood, and no title either. Anne objected. I love him. Isn't that enough? Why must everything be about protocol? Elizabeth spoke decisively. Love is a luxury. Duty is a necessity. You must make a suitable marriage, befitting the royal family. Anne rebelled. You also made a love marriage. You're happy with Philip. Why don't I have the right? Elizabeth became defensive. Our situation was different. Philip was suitable. Mark isn't. Anne cried. You never think about my happiness, only about your image. Am I a robot? Elizabeth didn't soften. You're not a robot, but you're a princess. This brings responsibility. Personal desires are secondary. Anne's marriage happened against Elizabeth's wishes. This became the breaking point. Their relationship became even colder. They met at official events. They didn't share private moments. When Anne's own children were born, she displayed a different approach. She became very close with Peter and Zara. She spent time with them. She played games. She formed emotional bonds. Elizabeth noticed this. Anne is spoiling her children, she would say. Too relaxed. Discipline is lacking. Anne would respond, I love them, she would say. Not like you did. For them, they're not just prince and princess. They're my children. This comparison hurt Elizabeth. I loved you too, she would say defensively, but showing it in different ways. I showed duty through love. Anne would laugh bitterly. Duty isn't love, she would say. Love is being warm, caring, present. Duty is cold, distant, absent. They're not the same thing. But what was truly shocking was Anne becoming more hardworking than Elizabeth in royal duties, and this creating open competition between her and her mother. In the 1980s, when Anne became workaholic, she attended more events than Elizabeth, visited more charities, gave more speeches. The media noticed this and began making headlines like Princess Anne hardest working royal, Anne outworks the Queen, the princess who never stops. These headlines bothered Elizabeth. She would tell Philip, Anne is attention-seeking, showing too much effort. This isn't healthy. Philip thought differently. Maybe she's proving herself to you. She's trying to get recognition. Elizabeth didn't want to accept this. I always recognized her. I told her when she did a good job. Philip was gentle. Professional recognition is different from personal recognition. Anne needs personal recognition, your love and approval. Elizabeth was uncomfortable with this conversation, but Anne's work intensity continued to increase. Every day, different events, exhausting schedule, no vacation ever. Elizabeth began to worry. Anne will burn out, she said. This pace isn't sustainable. But at the same time, she felt threatened. Do I look lazy? She thought. Compared to Anne? Maybe I should increase my schedule. Anne's motivation was complex. On one hand, she had genuine service passion. On the other hand, she was seeking mother's recognition. Maybe if I work hard enough, she would think, Mother will be proud. Maybe she'll finally acknowledge me. As a person, not just as a princess. This dynamic created unhealthy competition. Elizabeth also increased her schedule. When Anne noticed, she worked even harder. A vicious cycle began. Both became exhausted, but the emotional distance continued. Media comparisons didn't help. Queen versus princess, who works harder? Mother-daughter royal rivalry. Anne's challenge to Elizabeth's authority. These headlines damaged the relationship. The competition had become public, no longer a personal family matter. When Anne's children became teenagers, she divorced Mark. Elizabeth showed disapproval. "Divorce is a scandal for the royal family," she said. "It damages the image. Think about the consequences." Anne gave a bitter response. "Image again," she said. "Never my happiness. Always about royal family reputation. What about my pain? What about my loneliness?" Elizabeth was uncomfortable. "I understand personal pain," she said, "but there are also duty considerations. We must find balance." Anne exploded. "Balance," she said. "You never balanced anything. Always duty first. Never love first. Never me first." In this conversation, the truth came out. Anne expressed years of resentment. It was a shock for Elizabeth. "I tried to be a good mother," she said defensively. "In difficult circumstances. The crown is a heavy responsibility," Anne said with tears. "You tried to be a good queen," she said. "Not a good mother. I needed a mother. Not a queen, but you couldn't separate the two." This was exactly when everything changed, because Anne's second marriage and Elizabeth's attitude about it would be the peak of the Cold War between them. Anne started a relationship with Timothy Lawrence. This time, she didn't ask permission from Elizabeth. It was a direct challenge to authority. "I'm getting married," she announced. "I'm not waiting for approval." Elizabeth was shocked. "Without consultation?" she asked. "This is a major decision. It affects the family." Anne was defiant. "My life," she said. "My choice. I don't need your permission. I asked for the first marriage. It was a disaster. This time I trust my own judgment." Elizabeth tried to assert authority. "I'm still your mother," she said. "And queen. You must show respect." Anne laughed bitterly. "Mother," she said. "When did you act like a mother? You were always queen first. Now I'm an adult woman. Your queenly authority over personal life is over." These words deeply hurt Elizabeth. "I always loved you," she said. "I showed it in my way." Anne was soft but firm. "Your way was cold," she said. "It was distant. It was professional, but never maternal. I needed hugs. You gave handshakes. I needed bedtime stories. You gave protocol lessons. I needed unconditional love. You gave conditional approval." Elizabeth was beginning to understand. I come from a different generation," she said. "Emotional display wasn't appropriate." "But love was always there," Anne said with sadness. "Hidden love isn't love," she said. "Children need visible love, tangible affection. You gave duty. I gave duty back. But we both missed love." This conversation was a breakthrough moment. For the first time, the truth was fully spoken. Elizabeth realized the damage. Anne expressed years of hurt, but the solution wasn't easy. Anne was initially suspicious and would ask, "What do you need?" Elizabeth would say, "Nothing. Just wanted to hear your voice. See how you're doing." Gradually, Anne trusted and started sharing more. Personal thoughts, daily experiences, small joys and frustrations. Elizabeth learned to listen, without immediately problem solving, without making everything about duty. Just listening. That Christmas was different. Elizabeth made an effort. She sat next to Anne at dinner, asked about her interests, not royal duties, personal interests. Anne talked about horses, her charity work passion, travel experiences. Elizabeth listened attentively, made mental notes, showed genuine interest. Anne noticed the change. "Mother's different," she told Timothy. "More present. less queen-like, more human. Timothy smiled. People can change, he said, if they want to enough. She wants a relationship with you. Maybe give her a chance. Anne considered. I've waited 50 years, she said, for this version of mother. Scared to hope. What if she goes back to the old way? Timothy was supportive. Then you'll know you tried, he said. Both of you tried. That's something. Anne decided to take the risk. The next visit with Elizabeth was more open. She shared deeper thoughts, talked about her children, her hopes for them, her fears too. Elizabeth reciprocated. I worry I damaged you, she said honestly. All my children. Put crown before family. Maybe wrong priority. Anne was touched. Recognition is the first step, she said. Awareness is second. Change is third. You're trying. That matters. 6 months later, the relationship transformation was visible. Not perfect. Old habits still emerged. But genuine connection was growing. Elizabeth learned to show affection. Hugs became normal. I love you was said out loud. Personal interest was shown. Anne learned to trust again. Mother's attention wasn't always about duty. Sometimes just about her. As a person, as a daughter, the Commonwealth tour eventually happened, but as a choice, not an obligation. Elizabeth asked for opinion. Anne agreed willingly. Partnership instead of command. Collaboration instead of orders. Now you've seen nothing. Because the rebuilt relationship between Anne and Elizabeth wasn't just a personal victory, but also the beginning of the emotional evolution of the modern royal family. 5 years later, assessment. The relationship was transformed, not perfectly. Still challenges, still occasional misunderstandings. But the foundation had changed. Love was explicit. Duty was shared. Respect was mutual. Anne's work ethic remained, but motivation changed. Not seeking approval anymore, working from choice, from passion, from desire to serve, not proving worth. Elizabeth's leadership style evolved, more collaborative, more personal, more emotionally aware, with all her children. Anne's influence was visible. Family dynamics improved. Andrew and Edward noticed. Mother's different, they said. More approachable. More interested in us. As people. Anne was proud. Change is possible, she told them, at any age, if both sides are willing. Elizabeth was grateful. Anne taught me, she said, how to be a mother. Better late than never. Lost time can't be recovered. But the future can be different. Anne agreed. We both learned, she said. I learned patience. You learned love expression. Good combination. The media noticed the relationship change. Queen and Princess Anne. New closeness. Royal mother-daughter bond strengthens. Elizabeth's emotional evolution. But Anne and Elizabeth didn't care about media opinions. They focused on genuine connection, personal growth, family healing, setting an example for the next generation. William and Harry watched. Catherine and Meghan observed. Modern royal parenting was influenced. Emotional intelligence was valued. Duty was still important. But love was prioritized. Balance was achieved. Anne's grandchildren benefited. Both maternal love and royal responsibility. Not an either-or choice, a both and possibility. Elizabeth's legacy expanded. Not just longest reigning monarch, but emotionally evolving grandmother. Learning, growing, changing. Never too late for transformation. You won't believe it, but the Cold War between Anne and Elizabeth didn't just end. It also became a guide showing the importance of emotional intelligence and family bonds for future generations of the royal family. Years later, reflection. Anne understood her mother's struggles. A generation that didn't express emotion. Duty above all training. The crown's weight was overwhelming. Personal sacrifice was expected. Elizabeth understood her daughter's needs. Love had to be visible. Affection had to be tangible. Recognition had to be personal, not just professional. Both women learned compromise. Elizabeth became more emotionally expressive. Anne became more understanding and patient. The relationship matured. Mutual respect was deep. Love was finally spoken. Connection was genuine. Support was unconditional. The transformation was complete. From Cold War to warm peace, from duty only to love first, from Queen Princess to mother-daughter, the modern royal family was born. Through their courage to change, their willingness to grow, their commitment to heal, an example for all families, never too late to transform, never too old to learn, never too damaged to heal. Love requires expression, duty requires balance, family requires both. Anne and Elizabeth proved it was possible. Cold War can end, warmth can begin, love can conquer all, even in royal palaces, even after 50 years, even when hope seems lost. Change is always possible, if both sides are willing. If love is stronger than pride. If family is more important than image. The end of the Cold War. The beginning of love. Forever transformed. And so the Cold War story of Anne and Elizabeth comes to an end. A journey from coldness to warmth. An evolution from duty to love. A transformation from Queen Princess to mother-daughter. The birth of the modern royal family. Elizabeth's emotional growth. Anne's healing journey. The victory story of two strong women. Love conquering duty. Connection was genuine. Support was unconditional. The transformation was complete. From Cold War to warm peace, from duty only to love first, from Queen Princess to mother-daughter, the modern royal family was born. Through their courage to change, their willingness to grow, their commitment to heal, an example for all families, never too late to transform, never too old to learn, never too damaged to heal. Love requires expression, duty requires balance, family requires both. Anne and Elizabeth proved it was possible. Cold War can end, warmth can begin, love can conquer all, even in royal palaces, even after 50 years, even when hope seems lost. Change is always possible, if both sides are willing. If love is stronger than pride. If family is more important than image. The end of the Cold War. The beginning of love. Forever transformed. And so the Cold War story of Anne and Elizabeth comes to an end. A journey from coldness to warmth. An evolution from duty to love. A transformation from Queen Princess to mother-daughter. The birth of the modern royal family. Elizabeth's emotional growth. Anne's healing journey. The victory story of two strong women. Love conquering duty.